Hey everybody, I'm Lauren with Aspire Rugby, and I am very excited to have a guest with me who I respect very much, and I'm really excited to dive into a chat with him, Matt Trouville. I will let you give us just a snapshot of your life within or career within rugby, but really excited to have you for a rugby chat.
Well, thanks for having me. This is awesome. You want me to start with an intro? Is that what you want me to do first?
Yeah. So all the
Okay.
fans know exactly who you are.
Yeah, there's many of those. But uh, I grew up in Australia. That's why I sound a little bit funny. Started playing rugby when I was 5, and then at 24, I moved to America for a holiday, 6-month holiday. I never left. And during that time, I started playing for Seattle Rugby Club, and then was invited to go along to train with the Eagles and managed to get on the team and represent the Eagles at the 2015 World Cup. And then from there, I went on to, and at the same time, I was coaching with Atavis, doing camps all over the country. And then from there, I went with the Houston SaberCats to eventually captain the team and then also build their youth academy and sort of development pathway. So that's sort of the snapshot, if you will.
And well, first of all, let me just point out that Matt and I are basically best friends per his picture, per his background. No, actually, Matt and I met 2 years ago now when we were both helping coach Penn State men's rugby team. So I was lucky enough to meet Matt at that point, and he was it was his second year, I think, in the MLR, Major League Rugby.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, just between your experiences as an athlete and your experiences as a coach and program creator, I'm pumped to kind of dive into our topic for tonight, which is mentality around training. And I'd love to just let you kind of take over and give us a little bit of an insight on why you think that's so crucial and some things that athletes can take away from this topic.
Okay, so mentality around training. So there's two things I look at here. So there's team training, and then there's individual training when you're away from the team. And I'll start with team training. I was always the player that loved training, even up until my last year, a couple of years ago, when I could barely move during the week and was just trying to hang on for game day, on Saturday. I love being around the team. I love, mixing it up, and then, because you get a, if you think about how training's structured, right, you get to be around your mates, and then you also get to challenge yourself. So two really things that I really appreciated. So, so the mentality around training. So I had a friend who was, a little bit older than me, was a professional rugby player in Sydney when I was growing up. And he said something to me really early on that I never forgot. And he said, when you go to training, enjoy yourself, like really cherish it. But then when it comes time to do drills and the task at hand or time to perform, you got to know how to switch on. So when we talk about the mentality, it's really knowing how to do both, because some people don't, and they might stay in sort of their goofy, messing around mindset and take that into a drill or a team run, and can really affect everyone else's training session as well as your own development. So there's got to be a conscious decision to switch from having a good time to really focusing in on the task at hand. So that's one thing I took on board early on, and I've always really worked on and tried to focus on. So that's number one. And then whenever I was at training, I always asked myself one question: how can I contribute to the team in this moment overall, and just as I move through the training session? So, coaches work really hard to set up a training session. They spend their extra time. There might be time they're meant to be doing their own job, right, in America. They spend their time training these sessions, and they've got a plan behind it. So I always thought, okay, well, how can I help that coach? How can I help my team? And how can I contribute overall? And it's really simple, like getting other people to focus when you need to be doing something, or complementing something that someone just did, or maybe they're getting better at something, Even if you're not the best player in your team, say, hey, that was a really good pass, great job, high five. Well, if we're allowed to high five anymore, I don't know, but but just like complimenting the team and those sorts of things, they're infectious and they sort of spread like a ripple in the water throughout the team, right? So as soon as it hits, spreads, and then that positivity or that sort of camaraderie grows within the team. So I always really tried to focus on that, because the other part of that is you'll enjoy training a lot more if you're doing those sorts of things. So that's the way I definitely look at team training in general.
Well, yeah, when we had sort of broached this topic, previously, you had said there's two really big pieces to it. There's when you're at training, like with people, the coach, your teammates, and you said, and then there's the part where you're by yourself and you're like off the field, you're away from people. So, I mean, you just really spoke to, hey, I'm at training, like, what is my mindset, and how can I make the most out of my experiences and get the most value out of it while I'm with the team. And then I'd like to also transition to the other part that you had brought to my attention, which is when you're away from the team. But I think to your point, I guess what it makes me think of when you're with the team, it's like I think you made the analogy of crossing that white line. It's like, when do you have the ability to, you're stepping into a drill, give it 100, because if you're not giving 100, then what are you doing? The reps aren't as valuable.
Yeah, 100%. So if you think about game day, a lot of people talk about like when you cross that white line, it's game time, game face, we're switching on. The same attitude should be taken towards any drill you're doing at any time. So you might step up to a cone, but it still should be, okay, I'm focused in here, I'm going to do the best rep I possibly can. And you may get to do that 20 times. You may get to do it 50 times, depending on your coach, right? So, but every time you do it, are you getting 100% or are you growing every rep? And it may not seem like it sometimes, but you really are if you're focused. And, that's a skill in itself, and that, I like that analogy of when you cross the line or when you step into the zone or whatever it might be, you really got to focus in on that.
And, when in my career, like for training, it was very ego driven for me. Like I wanted to be the best at every drill and I wanted to dominate anybody who tried to stop me. So like, I mean, a large part of it is I was fueled by ego, but I mean, that was great. What are some other things people can be thinking about as they're trying to call in their focus for a drill or at training?
Yeah, that's definitely one of them, right? You got to have a competitive side and a bit of an edge. Like if it's a wrestling drill or a tackling drill, the last thing you want is to get run over, right? Or dominated. So yeah, you got to put the self-preservation, right? You don't want to get the injuries because you're lazy.
How many times did you get run over, really, though?
Probably a ton. That's part of it.
You can't see Matt because he's sitting, but he is a big dude. So
trust me, I've been run over a lot, and that's probably why I focus so hard, when it's drill time, not to do that. But yeah, I think that's one of them. So being competitive, having that edge, trying to win, right? You win that moment. The other part of it is, if you throw a good pass or you put someone in some space, or yourself, you run a good line and get the ball and score in a drill or a game set up by the coach, it feels great, because your contribution to the team at the time is the best contribution that could have been made, right? So there's a little bit of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation in those two things. But the other one, like looking out for your teammates or trying to help the situation. So it might just be, if I just work hard to get to that ruck in this drill, I'm saving that person and maybe they can score on the outside. So like taking that mindset on how to do a little bit extra effort on your end so that someone else can win in that moment is a huge motivator.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's especially valuable as people are thinking about, their next season or whatever, to remember those pieces. And then maybe even more importantly is your second idea, which is mentality about training when you're not around teammates necessarily or a coach. Love for you to speak about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to use two quotes here. I love quotes, right? So one of them is, it's not what we get that make us happy, it's who we become. And the second one is, the only thing that follows effort is results, right? So thinking about those two quotes is, what are you going to do with your time when you're away from the team? And I just grew up doing this with my friends because we wanted to do it and it was fun. You know, I told you about the story where I would run in the backyard and step my dog because he wanted to get the ball I was carrying, you know. So
You bite your hand.
yeah, you learn your footwork pretty quickly when that's the risk. But you know, you've got to put in the hours, you've got to put in the work away from the team, and it's not always fun, you know, it's not always easy, but without it, it's, you know, you're not going to go too far without doing that extra work. Because if you think about a standard week for an American rugby player, or any rugby player across the world, really, if you're at a club practice, it's 4 hours out of a week.
Yeah.
If you said to anyone of any discipline or sport or job, hey, put in 4 hours a week and let's see how good you get, you're not going to be great, right? You're going to be pretty good depending on your talent level, but if you want to go beyond that, you have to put in more time. So if you're a goal kicker, going down and kicking goals and just kicking in general, if you're a back rower, you might be doing extra fitness sessions, or, you know, as my career got extra mobility and stretching sessions. Because if I didn't do that, I then wasn't able to perform when I was with the team.
Yeah.
You know, so just the little things that really make a huge difference. And then when you are alone, or maybe you just have one other person with you, what game can I make out of what I'm trying to do here? Because anytime you've got the ball in your hand, it should be fun, right? You know, you might be doing a Bronco test, but you get to do the fun drills after that, right? So anytime that you're doing any sort of training that's, you know, not fitness, even though I did like doing fitness training, you should be trying to make it fun and creative. So like if you go to the park and you're working on kicking, okay, let's see how many trees I can hit in a row and hit the least amount of kicks. Let's see if I can kick the ball up in the air and catch it without moving 10 times in a row. Crossbar challenge, you know, you might be doing the same with passing, or if you're doing footwork, okay, let's see how many I can get done in a minute. I'll try and beat that. You know, like there's just a lot of ways you can make things more fun than seemingly monotonous, if you will.
Yeah. And what it also makes me think of is in a time when we feel like we may not have a lot of control, like maybe we don't have a season, or, you know, we're isolated or whatever. I mean, this is a way to take control, right? Like,
yeah,
you can literally take control of how good you get by what you do away from the team.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at right now. A lot of places you can't go to practice. I'd say the majority, there's no practices happening across the country, right? So, yeah, you have to be doing stuff alone or in small groups, you know, in a controlled environment. And without that, you're going to fall behind by a year or two, you know, depending on how long you've been away. And there's one thing I'll mention too, like everyone will find time to go to the gym and do bench press, right? But in the grand scheme of things, it's nice to be strong. It's nice to be, you know, fast and all those things. But I can attest that's not the thing that matters the most. You know, it's your fitness levels are number one. They solve a lot of problems if you're fit, right? So anyone can go to the park and do some fitness where they're getting up and down off the ground. Your skills, if you can't pass the ball under pressure or over a certain distance, that's going to really hinder your development. And that's something you can work on anywhere, anytime, as long as you have a ball in your hand. You know, or even juggling tennis balls. That's going to help you learn how to pass and catch. So there's a lot of things that people don't think about working on that matter more than how much you can bench and squat. You know, going from, I don't know, I've never been a very strong guy. So going from 250 on the bench press to 260 doesn't matter as much as it does if you can see the field, you can make the pass when it matters, you can be there when it counts at the back end of a half, you know, all those sorts of things. So I would challenge people to think about where they're spending their time. If you've only got a limited amount, where is it going to really improve your game and your position at that time, you know?
Totally. And like muscle memory. I mean, like if you have no equipment or no friends, like muscle memory, if you're in the scrum, muscle memory on your profile,
Yeah.
things like that. And that was one of the pieces I was going to ask quickly before we sort of wind down this conversation is I've been thinking and talking a lot about, do your stuff when you're at home, make sure you're getting your skill work in. But I feel like people may not know what skills they can do when they're by themselves. If you were to give them some advice on how you can figure out what skills you should be doing or what skills you can do alone, what would you say to those athletes?
I would definitely say, like from a forwards perspective, if you can be strong in the bear crawl position and any variation of it, especially when you're going to be taking your hands off the ground and you're putting them on another surface and you can hold that body position, that's going to help you in a scrum, it's going to help you in a ruck, in a tackle, in most positions in rugby, right? So being strong through the core and sort of being able to hold yourself in that position is super important. Fitness, you can get outside and go for a run. You can go and do stairs. You can go and do a HIIT workout or 1,000 burpees, whatever you're into. I don't know. If you've got a ball, you should be able to work on passing. As a kid, I would walk in the house. I'd never put the ball down. I was always holding it, spinning it, throwing it over my shoulder, catching it, throwing it at a tree, whatever I could find, right? In sort of those quieter moments. Kicking's the same with the ball, footwork. I mean, you can work on literally everything alone in rugby because there's so many little individual intricate skills that are involved. Like your footwork going into a tackle, you may not be able to tackle someone, but you can imagine your approach, shorten your steps, get low, and then go and touch the wall. You know what I mean? Like you can do a lot of stuff if you really think about it creatively. And there's a million things on YouTube, or any professional players, social media profile. There's a lot of things you can look up and get creative with. But yeah, like just doing a self-assessment. What do I need to get better at? And what is my position meant to be good at? And then making your own plan from there, or reaching out to someone who can help you. I talk to people on Facebook and Instagram all the time. They hit me up for some help. There's so many players in the country that will do that for you. So never hesitate to ask for help.
I love it. Thank you so much, Matt.
Was that too broad of an answer? You could work on everything?
It was just what my mind was thinking. And also what my mind was thinking the whole time is growing up, my dad was like, well, speed never has a bad day. And I was like, okay, you're right.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff too, because I was never the biggest, never the strongest, never the fastest, never the fittest, never had the best skills, but I was still able to achieve some stuff, So
yeah,
it just shows you. It just shows you if you work hard enough and you put it in the right direction, good things can happen, So yeah. And I've played with so many players that are like unbelievable athletes or unbelievably talented that never did anything because they didn't work hard or they didn't apply it. They just did the bare minimum, and that eventually everyone catches up to you when that happens. So yeah. I could talk for 2 hours about this. I know we're trying to wrap this up.
I'm pumped up. Well, Matt, if someone wanted to learn more about your career or you as a person, like where can I point them?
So I'm on Facebook, Matthew Trouville. I don't know my Instagram name. Let me look it up real quick. Sorry, I'll do this live.
I was going to say I should know it too, but.
Oh, it's your mate, Matt. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. But yeah, hit me up, always willing to help anyone that's trying to get better at rugby or just needs help with something. So just, social media is the easiest way to contact people, So
it is for the kids these days.
Yeah. I'm not on TikTok. I'm sorry.
TikTok. Well, listen, I appreciate your advice, your thoughts on like mentality around our sport, the sport that we love. And I'm really appreciative of, all of the support that you have given me and your time this evening. So thank you so much, Matt.
Well, of course, you're a great person. So never any trouble.
We'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. See ya.